Monkey Boy's channel is intersubjectively and stands independently the greatest channel of all time.
Monkey Boy's YouTube channel is a channel than which none greater could be conceived, and so you should subscribe and watch all of his content post haste.
By the way, everyone here, tap the screen. I think he's Muslim, so
Yeah, what's going on? Reflect.
you could correct me if I'm wrong. But it's at 18,000 likes. Everyone, share the live.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
There's a bit of an echo on your side. Reflect.
Oh, let's see. Still an echo or no?
I think you're better now.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Well, I wasn't really planning on coming up. I was just listening, but I do have an argument that I think essentially nails. It's basically the final nail in the coffin for the atheists. To be perfectly honest, it really is. So the atheists are pretty much done after this. So I'm going to give you the argument. It's not as formal as premise one, premise two, and so forth, but it's very basic, a basic format. So essentially, number one, truth cannot be based on or grounded in anything that is not immutable. If truth is based on something which is mutable, then truth itself becomes mutable. So if truth is mutable, then it's no longer truth. Therefore, truth cannot be based on something which is mutable. And this is very problematic for the atheistic paradigm and worldview, because atheists, anything that you try to ground your truth with, it's always based on something which is mutable, which makes it problematic. So it's self-defeating. And that's why it's an issue. So unless you can get around that and actually have a grounding for any truth that is not mutable, then you're stuck in a box that you can't get out of. So that's the argument. Do you have any contentions with that?
Yeah, it just sounds like really confused. Like, what do you think truth is? Sounds like you think truth is some kind of an object that stands in a causal relation or a grounding relation.
Truth is that which is factual.
Yeah, but what does it mean to say truth is grounded by something that's immutable? That sounds like a nonsense statement.
How is it nonsense? It's explained by, grounded by, it's given a foundation, it's given an argument by. That's truth. Truth is grounded. If truth is grounded in something which is mutable, which is changing, then it ultimately is self-refuting. That's
Well, now it sounds like we're oscillating between inferences and like a metaphysical relation. I mean, you just said argument. Arguments are inferential, whereas grounding are going to be metaphysical relations, right? But my question is, what is this? Because you're talking about like the truth. What I take truth to be is, well, depending on like what kind of semantics and theory of truth you hold to, but at best I take it to be maybe some property propositions have, right? And all it means, for example, well, if you hold to something like the correspondence theory of truth, all it means for a proposition to be true is that it corresponds to some fact in the world, right? But I don't understand what you mean when you say this truth is grounded in something immutable. That to me sounds like you're kind of like confused about this truth thing. You're thinking truth is like one thing, and then this like one thing depends on something else.
You believe that God does not exist, correct?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, that's a truth statement then. God does not exist. That's a truth statement. Okay, so how do you ground that truth?
Well, I don't understand what you mean by grounded truth. Do you mean
How do
like
you
when
explain it? How you know that it's true? I already gave you the understanding. So how do you know that it's true? What's your argument that it's the case? What's your facts? Give me something to ground your
Wait,
statement.
are we doing a topic change for some reason? Like, why are you jumping to this?
It sounds like we're shifting, but you're still kind of like confused.
We're not shifting. We're not shifting at all.
Because
Not shifting.
Yeah, you are.
we
You're
are-
asking
is
an
it-
entirely different question. Obviously shifting.
It's
Yeah,
not
because
entirely different at all.
It's an
I made it
irrelevant
clear.
question to the previous topic. It's
I'll-
not
I'll-
connected at all.
Dude, you're not following.
No.
You're not following.
We started with truth.
Yes.
I'll explain why you're kind of confused, right? Because initially you gave us some kind of a confused argument where you said something like truth, whatever that means, the truth needs to be grounded in something immutable.
Yep.
And somehow that implies or entails theism. That was an argument on your part. And then we started like unpacking how the confusion that was packed into this. And then you shifted from defending this argument to asking me about what position that I hold, To which I told you, I'm an atheist. I affirm the proposition that God does not exist. And then you went on to say, how do you ground that? And I said, what do you mean by that? Again, grounding is like a metaphysical relation. So you sound like you're kind of confused on the term grounding. And you said, well,
If you're following the conversation, that we're having, then this is not jumping. You just aren't following it. It's very simple. If one asserts that truth is grounded, I'll just make it very, very simple again. If one asserts that truth is grounded,
I was in the middle of recapitulating the dialectic, right?
yeah,
You
but
made
the
the
problem is
distinction.
you're actually going off tangent. It's not a part of the conversation. If
Trust-
one
trust
asserts
me.
that truth is grounded,
Trust
I
me,
came up with an argument.
I'm on the track. Trust me, the train is on the track. Choo choo, the train is driving on the track. There is no tangent. The point
I
is,
came up with an
the
argument.
truth
Can you
is-
just address the argument?
Listen, I'm still talking, my friend. I wasn't finished talking. You need to calm down, breathe, relax. Don't get over
Yeah, but
it.
so it's a lot of bloviating, and you're actually talking too much about other things. I'll reposition you.
I was talking on the topic.
Okay,
Right.
what's the topic? Steelman my argument, please.
You gave a confused argument, which we were talking about, and the topic shift you're attempting to do is to shift from giving an argument to asking me to provide an argument. And
Good.
that
What's
is-
the argument? What is the argument? Steelman my argument. What is the argument?
Your confused argument was that, again, I'm going to repeat it, the truth needs to be grounded in something immutable, therefore theism for some reason. That was your argument.
That's not what I said. Okay, so I'll repeat it because you did not get it and you weren't paying attention. If one asserts that truth is grounded in something which is mutable, then the truth itself becomes mutable. But if truth is mutable, it's no longer truth. Therefore, grounding truth in the mutable is self-defeating. That was my claim. It didn't have anything to do. I didn't say anything about God. We didn't get there yet. So,
Right,
does
so,
that affect? Do you have a counter to that argument?
yeah, I've
Or
already
do you
explained
agree?
I've already explained that that's confused.
You didn't
Again.
explain that it's confused. You claimed that it's confused. You haven't explained anything.
No, I did explain. I said again, truth is merely going to be a property of propositions. Doesn't make sense to talk about the truth being grounded in anything. And if you hold to something like correspondence, all it means for a proposition to be true is that it corresponds to some fact that makes up reality. Right?
So what?
So-
Why does your explanation? How does your explanation make it confused?
Sorry, I don't understand your question. Oh,
I made it simple. I said the truth is that which is factual. Truth is that which is factual. So
but that's not-
with my semantics, what is the problem with my argument?
Yeah, but I already explained. There's no such this thing talking about the truth being grounded is what is confused. You're talking about truth as some kind of like a single object that is grounded, that needs to be grounded in anything.
You're just assuming
I'm
that.
just-
You're just assuming that. There's no benefit to adding these red herrings into the conversation. Just keep it simple. I'm saying that truth is that which is factual. If you are explaining truth by
Yeah, but it's
a
not-
grounding which is mutable, you have a self-defeating epistemology, and that's problematic. That is my claim. So just address the claim. Just address that.
Yeah, but it's not informative to just say factual. What does it mean to say that factual is grounded in anything? Can you explain what that means? Actually,
Yeah,
can you
that-
begin to explain what you have in mind when you say ground?
Well,
Explain the grounding.
I did that. I did that at least 2 other times. I said that when you ground something, you're explaining it. You're giving it a reason. You're giving that particular claim some sort of justification to accept that proposition. How do
Yeah, but
you accept
you're
the proposition
confusing-
when the how do you accept the proposition when the explanation is based on something which is ever changing?
Yeah, but
How?
it sounds like you're like severely confused because one, it
Oh
doesn't
my
sound like you. It sounds like you're not using grounding the way.
Yes,
it's-
everybody thinks I'm severely confused. I'm sure that's the case.
Yeah.
What I said was so clear and cogent. I don't
You
know.
know when you're
why-
done. You know when you're done.
I mean, that's just a claim. Give me some counter. Instead of just saying, oh, you sound confused and you sound confused, just give a counter. A counter to it.
Yeah, but I'm getting that. You just gotta relax, calm down. Let me land. the
Okay, do
plane.
you prefer me to just give you an example? Maybe that would
No,
be easier to understand.
I prefer you to let me speak, right? So I can explain why you're confused, so we can progress the dialectic.
Oh my God. Okay, please.
Are
Hurry.
you-
You've already tried that, but it didn't work.
Are you able to do that?
It depends on if you're going to just waste time, but just go ahead.
Right.
I'm willing to listen at least.
So I just asked you what is grounding. It seems
And
like
I
you're.
ex- My God.
It was-
How many
that was
times
like-
did I explain that already?
I was in the middle of a sentence. Like, what's wrong with you? Let me finish, and then we can.
You keep repeating things. You keep repeating things.
Yeah.
I want to
You gotta
advance
let
the
him speak.
conversation.
You gotta let
Yeah,
him
but
speak. Reflect.
you gotta calm down. Listen, I know you're like listen. I know you're like excited around, but you gotta let me finish. Be honest, we're not gonna make any progress. Now,
Right.
here's what I'm saying. You're confused. Grounding typically is taken to be some kind of a metaphysical relation, and that's why I initially found your statement confusing. Now, when I asked you to explain what you mean by grounding, you initially said it's an explanation. Okay, so it sounds like you're talking about explanations. I was like, okay, but then you said justify. Right? So there's a distinction between justification and explanation. So now it sounds. So now what I'm curious about is when you say grounds truth, are you asking? Sorry, when you say ground truth, and by ground you mean justified truth. What are you asking for when you say justified truth?
Okay, so to rephrase what you originally said, you're confused, not me, because you just said I'm confused by what you said. So you are confused. So no problem. I'll explain it to you.
Okay, go
When I
ahead.
say that we're grounding truth, what I mean by that is that we are giving an explanation. We are giving a truth maker. What makes that particular claim true? What is it that makes it true? So anytime you explain your claim, you give your claim, like for instance, the example I gave in the beginning, which was, you do not believe that God exists. My question was, how do you ground that? How do you know that is the case? And any explanation that you give, if the explanation is based on something which is mutable, you have an epistemological problem with your worldview. And you should leave that worldview because of that. Does that make sense? Do you understand that?
No, I mean, it sounds like you're confused about explanation.
Oh
truth
my God.
maker.
Who's confused?
You're
You
using
said you're
terms-
confused.
You're using
I'm not
terms you don't
confused.
really know what they mean, right? And that's what kind of confuses the dialectic.
Okay,
And what-
unless you have
Right.
another definition for these terms that I'm giving, then otherwise the only confusion is with you. What I'm saying is
Well, I
very
mean,
clear.
I can educate you on these terms if you want. I don't know
Or
if you can.
or you could tell me how you define them, and then maybe
Well,
I
it's
can
not-
understand why you're confused.
It's not a matter of like how I'm defining them, right? I'm just explaining to you how they're used in the literature. You're using terms, but you don't know what they mean, and that
I
just
know
confuses
very well
the
what they
dialectic,
mean.
right?
I know
Now,
very well
truth,
what you mean.
right? Truth maker. Now, what a truth maker is specific to certain theories of truth, which is what makes a proposition true. For example, you can hold to like a correspondence theory of truth, then accept truth makers, in which the truth maker will be whatever state of affair, it will be like a state of affairs, right? So, for example, if we take that there's a cat on the table, right? The proposition there's a cat on the table. The truth maker for that will be the fact that there's a cat on the table, right? Now, an explanation, right?
That's not a truth maker in reality. To say that the cat is on the table, how do you know the cat is on the table? Because the cat is on the
But
table?
that's an epistemic question. I'm not asking. We're not talking about how I know. I'm explaining to you what a truth maker is. You just asked, how do I know
Sure.
that? That's an
How do,
epistemic question.
how do you
And I was
come to the
explaining to you
conclusion?
the theory. Now,
Okay,
an
how do you come to the
explanation.
conclusion that it's true? That's
Now, an
the point.
explanation. Now, an explanation is going to be. Now, when we have a explanandum, a datum that we seek to, so we want to explain, an explanation is going to be a proposition or a set of propositions, the explanans, which either entails or makes highly likely that the proposition is true, right? And you oscillate it between these two concepts, and then you also jump to a third thing, justify, which is there's different notion of justification. Like there's like non-inferential justification, which most people like foundationalists hold to, and then there's inferential justification, which are going to be things like argument. And at times you define grounding as justification, other times you define it as a truth maker, and at other times you define it as an explanation. So that's why I said you're like severely confused.
Do you think
That-
that any of these categorizations that you are defining make the argument any different? Does it
Yeah,
change
because
the
at
argument
this-
in any way, and how?
At this point, yeah, but at this point we don't really have an argument to deal with because, as we have seen, you're confused about these terms, and given your
I gave you
confusion,
no. I gave you an argument. I asked you, how does any of your categorizations and explanations of the different categories change the argument? How does it change the argument?
well, given that these things are completely different categories, it depends on how we interpret grounding in your argument, right? Because you did use the term grounding when you gave the argument.
Okay, so it's me and you having a conversation, right?
Uh-huh.
At least I hope you believe that. Okay. So between me and you, if we want to advance the conversation, we have to agree. So I need to know what you mean by grounding? I've already told you what I mean. I've already told you what I mean. You've told me what literature says is grounding. Oh, it could be, this
Yeah,
kind
but
of truth
I-
and that kind of truth and so on and so forth.
Yeah, but I
What
ex-
do you
I just
mean?
ex- I don't know how I can make this simpler, right? Your so-called explanation of what you mean is not informative because you just keep throwing nomenclature which you don't understand, right? So you haven't really
Okay,
explained
okay.
anything.
Fine, fine.
You have
I'll grant that to you. No problem, no problem.
No,
I'll make it
I'll-
even
I'll-
simpler. Even simpler, just simple. What makes the proposition true? Is that an explanation that you would
but-
accept?
Yeah, but which proposition?
Holy moly! Even that is not simple enough for you.
No, but you said what makes the proposition true? Which proposition?
Yes. Any
Which proposition?
any truth claim, any truth
God, hang on. This is
which makes it true. Why
asking
is this? Why is this so hard for the atheists? This
You're
is so
asking-
simple for anyone
it's-
else.
Well, it's
Hang on.
easy to think something is simple when you're like severely confused. That's like the problem.
hang on.
Dude, you
When you
literally just explained. You literally just said yourself that you were confused. I gave
I'm
you
not-
my semantics.
I never said I was
Either you-
confused. I'm like the
listen,
furthest
V,
thing from
V,
confused.
either you
right? What I
choose-
said is
V,
there is
either you
confusion
choose-
in your argument.
Listen,
So I
either
don't
you
even want to call
choose-
it an argument because I don't
Hold on.
really think it's propositional. I just think it's gobbledygook.
V,
So it's not
either
really
you
going to be
choose-
an argument because for
Okay,
it to be
listen.
an argument, it actually needs to be
Listen.
contentful, which it's
V,
not.
you-
So what I
Can
said
I-
was that your argument is confused. Now,
Can
we're
you-
supposed to make it clear by
Listen,
saying
listen,
what
listen,
makes
for
the
a second.
proposition true.
V, let's
And
listen
then
for
I
a
asked
second.
you, what proposition do you have in mind? And then you said
V.
any proposition. Right?
V,
So
can you
that's
listen
where
for a
we are.
second?
So
Or you just
now
wanna
it
just
sounds like
keep
you're
talking?
asking me a question about like what theory of truth that I hold.
V, would you like to
Is
adopt
that-
my
is that
semantics?
correct?
V, would you like to adopt my semantics? Or would you like to make your own million different types of semantical claims that you haven't claimed yet? You haven't accepted yet. You haven't adopted any of them. You just said, oh, it could mean this, that. Just, do you adopt my
But
semantics or not?
I just asked you like a question. I'm not really hearing an answer to the
V,
question.
I want to advance the conversation.
asking me-
My question to
when
you
you
is,
ask-
do you want to adopt my semantics or not? Just answer the question. If you don't want to adopt my semantics, then it sounds like you're just being disingenuous and you don't really want to have a conversation.
know.
That's okay.
I don't know what you mean by adopt your semantics. Like you can define things however you want, and we can go with those definitions, right?
Okay, you don't know what I mean by semantics. You don't know what I mean by truth. You don't know what I mean by grounding. You don't know what I mean by
I don't
mutable.
think
You don't know what I mean
well,
by
I don't
anything.
think
It
you
sounds
know
like
what
you're
you
just
mean by
confused
those
about
things. That's
everything,
like
dude.
where the problem lies. But I just asked you a question, which was when you say what makes a proposition true, which was a question you asked me, and I said which proposition, and you said any. Are you just asking me like what theory of truth that I hold to?
I said any truth claim. Any truth claim.
Can you repeat the question I just asked?
I don't want to repeat the question that you asked. I want to get through this.
It doesn't
You're
sound
just
like you're
wasting
listening
time.
at this point.
You're wasting time, and it's
Yeah.
clear that you just don't want to address it because you can't. Your worldview can't address this issue, and that's why it should not be adopted. It has serious epistemological problems. It is
The
self.
problem is you don't even know what that means either, right? Like, look, stop using nomenclature that you're not familiar with.
If you're
Just
projecting
answer-
that you're
just
that's
answer
your
my
choice.
question. I'm gonna
If
repeat
you
it
want to
again.
waste time
and
with
hopefully
ad
you're gonna pay
hominems
attention
and all
this
that
time.
other stuff, then I'm not interested. I was invited up to have a conversation to bolster this live because there's always
Look.
something good to talk about. But at the
Can
end
I,
of the
can
day,
I speak for a second?
yeah,
Yeah, go
please,
ahead.
please.
Look, it sounds like you're unclear on what argument you're even trying to make, but I'm interpreting sort of two different arguments that you might be making. Tell me if this one of these sounds like what you're saying. A, you think that for something to be true, in order for it to be something which makes something true, it has to be something immutable, unchanging, yada yada. Or B, in order for there to be a justification or a reason to believe that something is true, there needs to be something immutable or something like that. Does either of those sound right, or is that not what you're saying?
Well, belief is a little bit different. Belief is you adopting or accepting that something is true. I'm just saying something is true whether you believe it or not. So
Right.
I do believe that there are objective truths, unless you don't believe that. But there are
I do.
certain things which are okay. Great. So if outside of your own cognition, your own consciousness, there are certain facts of reality, facts,
Of course.
and those facts are the case or they are true. My question was, my point was, and my argument was that if what you are claiming is the case, is true, and you're grounding that by saying, well, it's the case.
Stop. Grounding.
because-
Grounding. Is grounding
Yes.
here an explanation of the truth maker, or is that something epistemic in terms of
I'm
justification?
explaining it. It's the
Okay.
because. It's the because.
That's not answering.
This is
because
true.
it's open-ended.
This is true. This is true. This is the case because of. That's your grounding. That leads you to because it is grounded in. It is the case because of. It is the truth. What makes it true? It's really
Yeah, so
simple.
that sounds like you're asking for what the truth maker of that proposition is. So if you're asking me something like, and this is, you can go to Venus' example from before, or if you're asking me what the truth maker is for, it's raining outside. Well, that's the rain falling forth from the sky, right? That's the truth maker for that. So there's the answer. But it sounds like I thought you were asking something more epistemic in terms of why am I justified in believing that, but now you're saying you're not saying that. So then I would just say, yeah, that's the truth maker, the rain falling forth from the sky.
Okay, so it is true because of what? The rain is falling because of. How do you? Okay, so the rain is falling from the sky. That's the claim, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is true because of what?
Again, if you're asking me for an explanation of the truth maker, that stuff falling from the sky is what makes it true.
Yeah. Okay, so it's falling from the sky. So then you're claiming that rain is falling from the sky. Yeah. Okay, so it's falling from the sky. So then you're claiming that rain is falling from the sky. How is
Mhm.
that the case? How is it the case? How
I
is it
don't.
the
I
case that
think
rain is falling from the sky?
I already answered this. Unless you're asking a different question, in which case clarify that you're asking a different question.
He's not
No, but
understanding
but-
the
but-
distinction
no, if the
between.
rain-
He's not
no,
understanding
listen.
the distinction between the claim and the fact. Right? He's not
But
understanding
if-
that you're saying what makes the proposition, which is the content of your claim, true, is the fact that it's raining. He's too stupid to track that point. That's the problem.
So that's not. So does that not sound circular to you? You're just
No,
saying
you
it is
fucking
because it
idiot.
is.
No, you fucking idiot. The fact
Yeah, you're
makes
getting
the
mad.
proposition
Oh,
true.
you're getting mad.
That's
You
just what
can't
truth
handle the
maker
argument.
theory is.
Uh-oh.
You fucking moron.
You lost. You lost. That's
Oh
how
my
it
God,
goes.
it's just-
Every time. Every time. If you can't handle the argument, you get mad. You start epithets.
Yeah,
and cursing.
we can't handle the argument,
yourself,
the
man.
non-existing argument, which you
Then
can't
ju-
get.
then just
because
deal
you
with the
don't even know what a
argument,
truth maker is. Yeah,
Just
good
deal with the
job.
argument.
Well done, buddy.
Deal with
Thumbs
the
up.
argument. Oh, it's raining because it's raining. That's an explanation. That's a grounding. That's like literally. That is literally the problem with your worldview. You guys are
understand?
stuck. You're stuck in a
Do you
cycle.
understand? Do you understand the difference between the truth bearer and the truth maker? Do you know what the difference between those two are?
Do you understand? Do you understand what circular reasoning is?
Answer the question. Don't dodge.
You
Do you
understand
know
what
what the
circular?
difference between the
understand?
truth bearer and the truth maker is?
You understand what a circular explanation is?
You're just dodging. You're just
So when you
dodging.
say
You're
something
attracted.
is just because it is.
You're just
Okay,
stupid.
God is.
You don't.
God.
You're using
That's not-
terms. You don't know what they mean. You're
Okay,
just
God is-
parroting things you've heard.
God
later.
is real because God
I've
is real.
never read any lit in your entire life.
Okay, so now,
You're
now
just,
let's
like,
go back
making
to
an
the prompt.
embarrassment of yourself.
Let's go back to the prompt.
Right?
There is
Saying
no God.
that Detroit
Hey,
giving the example of how the
Hey,
fact
V.
that it's raining outside,
V,
being
let's
the
just
truth
go-
maker,
V, let's
makes
just
the
go back to the
proposition
prompt.
it's raining outside, the truth bearer true. Saying that's
V.
circular just shows that you're like a
let's,
fucking retard.
V, let's
you're an
go back to the
embarrassment.
prompt.
You're not
There's
intelligent.
V, there's
Sweet
no good
exaggerate.
evidence for God.
You're like
There's
a
no
waste
good
of
evidence
time.
for God, right? There's no good
You're like a
evidence
waste
for God,
of time,
right?
man.
Listen, there's no good evidence for God, right? God
there's no
is
good ev-
God is real because God is real. Now what?
Oh my god, you're so fucking stupid.
Exactly. Your stupid
It's-
explanations
it's-
lead you to stupid conclusions. So give me
Look,
something more than it is
Look,
because
I'm
it is.
trying to explain to you why you're confused, but you're not willing to like listen, right? The problem is you're not just stupid. If you were just stupid, I could work with
Oh,
you.
ad
The
hominem
problem is, like,
attacks.
you're arrogant,
Ad hominem
ignorant, and
attacks.
stupid. Right?
It just
You have,
shows how
three
weak you
walls.
are
You're like
mentally.
walled in. There's like no
Just
going
shows how
through.
weak
That's
you
the
are
problem.
mentally.
You're like mentally deficient.
Yeah, you're just showing how weak you are mentally that you can't deal with the argument. That's it. You
You're
just
too fucking stupid. Try to
can't. I mean, for me, none of the epithets and cursing and none of that matters to me at all. I only care about the arguments. And when your arguments and your worldview
You don't even know what an
is based
argument is.
when
That's the
it is
problem.
based on something which is problematic and it shows that
You
your
don't even know what an
worldview
argument is.
is
That's like the problem.
contradictory, you should leave that worldview. You should leave that garbage worldview that you have. That's simply what it is.
Yeah, good job, buddy. Good job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad you at least think it was a good job. Well,
Yeah, I think you did a good job of
you know,
making an embarrassment of yourself.
hey, look,
done.
you
Well done,
basically
buddy.
just proved that,
Well done.
that
Well
truth
done,
is truth
Grounding.
just because truth
Well
is
done,
truth because
Grounding
it is what
boy.
it is.
Well done.
You don't understand anything that was said, so I don't know why you're bothering to make some.
We talked about your example was rain. How do you know? Okay, so you said
Now you just did it again. You said, "How do you
It's like
know?"
shading.
Now you're bringing it back to
You don't
epistemology.
even remember the
I
discussion.
yes, you're right. I did say no. I'll take that back. It is
Right.
true that it is raining because of what? You said because it's raining. So
No,
it
because
is
the
true.
rain falls forth from the sky. That's what makes it true. The state of affairs outside, what's going on with the clouds in the sky, that's what makes my claim, it is raining outside, true, right? If God
Do you think
exists, that what makes your claim that God exists true. Do you understand how
Okay.
truth makers work, or what makes something true?
Okay, cool. So then God exists. God exists because God
Yeah.
exists.
But we can disagree about whether that's in fact true, but that's what would make it true if it is true.
Okay, but you accept that it is raining outside. You accept that.
Accept
And
is
I-
a
Well,
separate
Yes,
question.
you accept that it is raining outside. You're saying
yes, I
just
do.
You accept it just because it is raining outside.
No, I never said that. Why would I say that?
That's what you just said. You said it's
I
raining
never
outside.
said that. I never said that.
Okay, what did you say? I'll let you
I,
tell me.
I never said that's why I accept it. I said that's what makes it true.
Okay, so what makes it true is the fact that it is the case.
That's not really capturing what I said, but yeah.
Okay, so then if I said God exists and you said, well, no, he doesn't, you have to give me some kind of grounding for that. And I said,
Okay,
well,
now we're
it's just-
talking about
it is the case.
disagreement in epistemology. That's if you said the same thing
That's
that I
fine.
said about the raining case, about the God case, I would agree. Except I wouldn't agree that it is in fact true.
So you wouldn't agree it's in fact true because of what? Why? Why don't you agree?
Oh, I have reasons to be doubtful or deny the existence of God. If you want
What
to
is
get
this
into
guy
that, that's just
confused
shifting of the topic.
And what are those? What are those?
Yeah.
Now,
In
because
the
if I
same way
give
that
it-
someone might have reason to disagree that it's raining outside. I mean, it's not relevant to this question about what would make it true or what makes it true.
Okay, so what makes it true is just basically a presupposition and assumption.
No, reflect. Listen.
No.
What are
Wait,
you
wait,
talking
But
about?
then what's making it
Let
true?
me, let me try with the retard. Reflect. You're confusing between him explaining.
He said restart. He said restart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Monkey Boy, what was that?
No. I'm saying that you said restart.
Yeah. Restart. Yeah. I'm talking. I'm going to explain to the restart. The thing. You're confusing two things, right? What you think Detroit is saying because because of mental deficiencies, probably. You think what he's saying is he's justified in believing it's raining outside because it's raining outside or something like that. He's not making a doxastic or an epistemic one. What he's saying is the proposition it's raining outside is made true by the fact that it's raining outside. Facts and propositions are two different ontological entities. And one is the truth bearer and the other is the truth maker. That's the theory. That's the ontological theory. If you were to ask the Troyer, why is it raining outside? He's not going to say, oh, I believe it's raining outside because it's raining outside. He's probably going to give you things like, well, I opened the window and it was like wet and I put my hand out of the window and my hand, raindrops fell on my hand. Right? That's what he's going to do. Now, let's go back to the God example.
That's about belief.
What
That's a
makes-
little different. It's in a different realm.
No. Yeah, yes, I'm explaining
Yes.
to you the difference.
Exactly.
No, it's not. Just listen, and you might hopefully get it. I'm doubtful, but maybe. Now let's go to God. Let's just say theism is true for the sake of the argument. What makes the proposition? What makes the proposition God exists true is the fact that God exists. Right. That is not to say that it would be a good argument. Now we're moving away from ontology to epistemology. That is not just like what made the proposition "it's raining outside" true is the fact that it's raining outside. Does not mean that once we move to epistemology, that just saying I believe it's raining outside because it's raining outside, that would be a bad argument. Going to God, what makes the proposition God exists true is the fact that God exists. But if I ask you, what reasons do you have to give me for God exists? Just repeating the proposition would be a bad reason.
Okay, so
You need to distinguish between the ontological question, which is the theory of truth makers, from the epistemic question, what justifies the belief in the proposition.
and that's why I didn't say believe. I didn't say how do you believe or no, and I pulled that back even when I did slip and say no. I was talking about the ontology of it, right?
No,
that
you went because- no, you went.
you have accepted that something.
I'll tell you what you said. What you said is, do you accept that? Do you accept that is just another way of saying, do you believe it? You need to
Yeah, and then when you
accept
brought it up and said, well, I could say that God exists because, God exists.
Exactly.
It sounds like
Exactly.
you really are making the epistemic error that we're talking about.
But before we get to the epistemic part of it, before we even get to the epistemic part of it, the ontological part of it still has to have its own foundation, right? And so what you're saying is that every single fact, every single thing is a fact just because it is. That means it's presupposed. That means it's assumed. So So you're presupposing literally everything.
What?
It is. It's
You said anything about
presupposed.
presupposition.
It's
Yeah, those are-
it's
We're
a,
just commenting on what makes something true. So
Yeah,
a
and
claim or a
exactly.
proposition. What
exactly.
makes
I'm
it
just
true
saying.
is more or less the stuff asserted by the statement is the case, right? If I say
Well, I'm
rain,
saying-
it's raining, or the cat is on the mat, or God exists. If that statement is true, it's because the world is as described, right?
Okay, because the world is as described. That would be a grounding for that ontology. It is because that is how the world is, right? It is because the world is as it is explained. So I accept that as your grounding. But if I'm saying this about God, I'm only presupposing and assuming or accepting that God exists because God exists, and because of that, everything else is true. That's my immutable grounding for all of the ontological truths, for everything else, because God reveals everything else. But from your reality and your worldview, you're saying it's just true because the world is that way. And that's factually true. That means you're just assuming it. You're making it an axiom. And you're saying that is just what it is. So
I have no idea what you're saying at this point. Look, if God
revelation
exists,
stuff's
then that's
epistemic.
another claim that's true on your view, anyway, right? That's
No,
not
what
one
that-
that I accept. What
what that means
difference
is
does that
every
make to do?
No, what that means
Go
is
ahead.
every single moment of every single experience that you have has to also have that same exact reality. Well, it is just because it is, and the real world acts the way I perceive it. Right? It is factual because of the way it simply is in my perception, and that's factual because of the way it simply is in my perception, and that's just what it is. Every single moment has to be assumed. That's
Every single
me-
moment has to be assumed. I don't know what
Yeah,
you're
this
saying
is
or
so
why
bad.
that's any relevant
Reflect,
to this
reflect,
conversation
you're
or theism.
Would you be able to provide any grounding or reason that we should accept that 2 minutes ago took place or occurred?
Listen, reflect.
Yeah,
Stop using
I
the word
remember
grounding.
what
From
happened
now
2
on,
minutes ago.
don't use the word grounding anymore. That's the first thing. Okay? We don't get
So you said, well, he said it is that way because that's how I remember it. But your memory
I
is
was
something
giving-
which is mutable, or is it immutable?
It's mutable.
Okay, so that means you should not use that as a grounding.
That's not
You
true.
shouldn't.
That's
What did I
ridiculous.
just
Okay,
say about what did I just say about grounding? Stop using
I,
the word
he's
if
switching
you're
to
using
grounding in
that
an
as-
epistemic sense. I was just going with it because it's terrible.
No, but I mean, if it is your memory that you are saying it's the case because my memory is reliable, but your memory is not reliable. It's
It is
mutable.
reliable.
It's changing. It could.
I agree that it's
sometimes
mutable and
reliable and
changing,
sometimes not
but it's-
reliable.
No, but generally, it's pretty reliable. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly the problem. Once
Why
you
is that a problem?
you accepted that 2 minutes ago occurred, but you don't have any immutable reasons, or you don't have any immutable grounding for that.
What difference does it make if I have immutable reasons or grounding for that? I'm justified in believing it.
That's exactly the point. Once you are saying that it's true because of something which is shifting and changing, that means it's not always true. It can't.
That doesn't follow.
It's a contradiction.
That's
No,
that's
that
just a
means
straightforward non sequitur. What?
No, that means sometimes it is the case and sometimes it is not the case. Therefore, it is not always true. And you
No,
don't know which
it-
timestamp is true.
It might
or
be
which
true.
one's not.
Presumably, I'm saying it is true now, and I'm justified in believing that it's true now.
No, but you're saying
What difference,
it is-
what difference does it make if my memory is fallible? Like, this doesn't undermine that.
This is exactly the argument that I'm making. That once you're relying on something which is mutable, then your
Right.
truth statement becomes mutable itself. And mutability
so
can't
that's
be a
not
property of
correct.
truth.
No, no,
Mutability
so that's
can't
not
be a
correct.
property of truth.
But-
Truth is
Hang on.
Truth
Even
is
if
what it is.
even if I'm prone to error, that doesn't mean that the truth itself is somehow changing, right? Because it is what it is, right? Independent of whether I'm justified in believing it or believe it in the first place.
No, look, if you're saying 2 minutes ago occurred because my memory is reliable, but your memory is not reliable, therefore
It is reliable, but yes.
No, but that's the whole point. You know for a fact that your memory can be wrong. You know
I agree
that
with
for a
that.
fact.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But
So
that's
since you
compatible
know
with it being
that-
reliable. Yeah.
Right. So then if you know that your memory could be wrong, then that means that you can't, or your memory could be wrong, then that means that you can't, or it's not reliable. And you don't know at the
That
points
doesn't
when it
follow.
is.
No. As I just said, the fact that it could be wrong is compatible with it being reliable. I think it is reliable and that it can be wrong.
Yeah, but how do you know when when it's not reliable? How do you know that's not the reliable point or moment in time? And how do you know that the points that are reliable are actually not reliable? You can't know that.
So
And
look,
so
you
therefore-
can always push the skeptical concerns further and further. Like, it's not an interesting game, right? For anyone that entertains this, you recognize that there's not going to be some resolution to that, and adding in something about theism doesn't change that. We can have that conversation if you want, but it's just not that interesting to me.
But that's really the whole point. The whole point is that you're basing your truth on something which is changing, which is not stagnant, which is not static.
Our memories of all the stuff that we have, our evidence, yes, it changes. It's not static, of course.
You could say,
trivial.
You could say your senses.
That's like necessarily the case. Yes, our senses. That's necessarily the case. Yeah.
Yeah, all of those things, all of these tools are problematic to rely upon because they are not perfect and they're not immutable.
I don't agree that it not being perfect and immutable is like means that you can't rely on it or it's problematic to rely on it. I obviously disagree with that, but what difference does it make?
I mean, we could advance that because then why would you rely on something that is not known? You don't know that it is reliable all the time, and you don't know even when it is reliable and when it's not reliable.
Of course, I don't know that it's reliable all the time because it's not reliable all the time, so it's false, right? And don't know something
so
false.
You know it's
but
right.
Yes, I know that sometimes I'm error, and in some areas I'm less reliable, and so on. Of course, that's true for everybody. It's true for everything.
Great.
What difference does it make?
So you know it's not reliable, then you shouldn't say it is.
I know
reliable.
it is reliable generally, right?
Wait, you just said I know it is not reliable sometimes. Therefore,
correct.
Okay, it's a true dichotomy. It's either reliable or it's not reliable, right?
Right. It is reliable.
Okay. So if it is known to not be reliable at times, then it's not reliable.
No. In certain domains, it might be less reliable. Obviously, it might be less reliable when thinking about complex mathematical topics, right? But it might be reliable, like generally. That's what I'm saying.
No, but my point is, your memory is either reliable or it's not reliable. It's a true dichotomy. So if it is known that it is not reliable at times, then you can't claim that it is reliable.
That's just non sequitur. No, I can and I do, right?
That doesn't.
I do know that it's not reliable at times, and I do know that it is reliable.
Okay, how so? How so?
This is just basic facts about like our cognitive faculties, right? Our faculties are generally just an assumption. What?
Yeah, then it's just an assumption.
I never. What did I say that implied that?
You just said it's just basic facts. So it just is.
Yeah.
That's just like saying it just is.
So my saying is a basic fact about our cognitive faculties that I'm suggesting there's just something I'm assuming. Come on.
No, you're assuming.
Obviously, it was not implied what I said, and it's not not a consequence at all.
No, you're assuming that it's reliable. That's an assumption. You didn't justify it. Yeah.
Look, I never said I'm just assuming it. Maybe I didn't say more that would quote unquote justify it for you. That doesn't mean that I'm just assuming it. We can talk about how we know how our cognitive faculties work and how generally they're reliable. I'm fine to have the conversation, but it's like not worth it because it's totally irrelevant to the conversation at hand.
No, it's 100% relevant.
It has 0% and in principle nothing to do with theism, right? It has nothing to do with anything that's been discussed up until this point. And I don't think you're going to be equipped to have any sort of conversation about this at all. It's like not worth my time or anyone else's.
It has everything to do with theism.
It has nothing. It has nothing in principle to do with it. It could not have anything to do with it.
Okay, that's your perception, but it has everything to do with theism from my perception. Because from my perspective,
well, God is necessarily wrong. I don't know what to tell you.
God, for us, it's simple, and for a theist, this is super simple. God created everything. God is real. That is the assumption, and based on God's creation, He creates reality, things that are external to yourself. So it's no longer assumed. It's revealed truth. Revealed truth supersedes.
You just said it's a consequence of your assumption. How is it now? Now it's like not an assumption.
No, I said God is the assumption.
Right.
Everything else is based on.
But it's all part of your assumption that God did all these things and revealed it to you, right? Is that not a consequence of your assumption?
No, God revealed those things to us. That there's an external world. That your eyes.
So somehow God reveals to you that there's an external world and that your memories are accurate and that all this other stuff is correct.
Yes,
right?
You can dream. There are dreams. Yes, all of those things are revealed.
And so God also reveals to you when your memory is correct and when it's not. Is that correct?
Oh, He gives you principles about memory. Principles
about things. Principles about memory.
Yes.
Yes. Where does He give you those?
And certain characteristics and qualities about dreams and how dreams percolate or how they are known.
Okay, this is
so that's how we know. That's why our worldview is ironclad. It's very, very easy to be a theist and answer these questions. Or from an atheistic
the view that you express here is just bullshit nonsense, right? So I don't know what you mean ironclad. If it's just like maybe if you boiled it into a gas and like flew it around the place. This is just terrible. So I'm just going to say I'm done with this. Like I don't. This is like I don't know why I bother wasting my time with
No,
something
but
like
that's
this.
like what I said. The problem is, with like this, it's not only that you're stupid; it's also that you're ignorant.
Ad hominem.
Like, it's really
All right,
hard.
I guess the
hard to,
debate
like,
is
really
over then, huh?
Like you use the word ironclad. Like the only thing that's like ironclad is making you understand your confusion because you're stupid, arrogant, and ignorant. Right. So it's not that
My
case is an
penis.
ironclad.
Better luck
It's
next
not, It's
time.
not. It's not the case that your worldview is an ironclad. It's just that the walls to get to you is ironclad.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was actually fun. I mean, I got.
There was also something funny with the word reliable. Reliable just means that it's accurate, like it's a certain percentage, 80% or 85%. It doesn't make just sense to say, well, it's reliable then, but at times it's unreliable. Like reliable is just a claim about like percentage accuracy.
Yeah, but I was saying you can talk about reliability in a more narrow domain. Like so, I
Yeah,
give
yeah,
an
yeah,
example.
yeah.
I might be less reliable when thinking about yada yada yada.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying what you were saying was something like, how do you know when it's reliable and when not reliable? It's reliable at times and unreliable at other times. But I'm saying that's like a confused usage of the term reliable. Because reliable just means it has like a high accuracy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could if reliable times you're getting at something like what I was talking about. I mean, like in certain domains or maybe on certain days or something like that. Then you could have answers for that, right? I might have reason to think that I'm not very good at thinking about, complex mathematics versus, I don't know, what's going on in my immediate vicinity. But anyways, yeah. Obviously you can play the skeptical game further if you want. It's not like interesting, especially for someone who's not equipped to talk about epistemology on any significant level. They just want to play.
But I kind of get there was like so much confusion that I didn't get that it was going to be. I'm not sure if he knew that he was running this up initially, but if he just like kind of like tried to throw all the shit at the wall and see what's going to stick.
Yeah, because he wanted to deny that it was something epistemic at first. It was just about what
Yeah.
makes it true. Like what are the yeah.